Evan walked through the crowded alien marketplace with no real purpose. He had only stopped on this planet to rest before his next journey. Humans usually stayed in the upper districts, away from the noise and chaos. But something pulled him toward the lower area today. Something he could not explain. As he passed rows of stalls, he heard a tiny voice whisper from somewhere near the ground. It was soft, shaking, almost too quiet to notice. But the words were clear. "Please take my toys, human. Please. I need credits to buy medicine for my mother." Evan froze. He turned slowly and saw a small green-skinned alien girl sitting on the dusty ground. She couldn't be more than 6 or 7 years old. Her hair was long, messy, almost white. Her dress was old and torn, covered with dirt and small holes. In front of her were 3 little toys, a rag doll with missing threads, a small wooden block with faded symbols, and a stuffed creature with one eye missing. These toys were clearly precious to her, yet she was selling them. The girl held a cardboard sign with shaky writing. It said, "For sale." Her hands trembled as she held it up. Her big eyes were full of fear and sadness. She looked like she had been crying for hours, maybe days. People walked past her without stopping. Some ignored her completely. Some looked at her with annoyance. A few laughed quietly as if her pain was entertainment. But no one helped her. No one even spoke to her. Evan kneeled down slowly so he didn't scare her. "What is your name?" he asked softly. The girl hugged her rag doll close to her chest as if it gave her strength. "My name is Leary," she whispered. Please buy my toys. My mother is sick. She needs medicine. I need credits." Evan could hear the fear in her voice. She wasn't just desperate, she was terrified. He looked around and noticed something strange. A group of alien guards stood in the distance. They were watching Leary closely. But they were not helping. Their eyes were sharp, cold, as if they were waiting for something. Evan asked, "Why are the guards watching you?" Leary lowered her head. Her small fingers tightened around the doll. They say my family is marked," she whispered. "We are low class. We are not allowed in the clinics unless we pay before. They say helping us is against the rules." Evan felt anger rising inside him. He had heard about class systems on other alien planets, but seeing a child suffer because of it made his heart twist. He asked gently, "Where is your mother now?" Leary swallowed hard. "At home," she said. "She cannot move. She cannot talk. She only breathes a little." Evan looked at her toys again. These were the only things she owned, and she was willing to lose them just to keep her mother alive. His chest tightened. No child should go through this, he thought. "Take me to your home," Evan said softly. Leary's eyes widened. She looked scared. You will get in trouble," she whispered. "Humans cannot help marked families. The guards will punish you." Evan shook his head. "I don't care," he said. "You lead the way, Leary." "I will help your mother." Leary stood up slowly. She gathered her toys carefully, placing them in a small cloth bag. Her movements were gentle, almost protective. Evan could see these toys were more than objects. They were her memories, her comfort, her entire world. She reached out her hand shyly. Evan took it. Her hand was tiny, cold, and trembling. Together they walked through the marketplace. But the moment they moved, the guards also moved. They followed them at a distance. Not running, not shouting, just watching, waiting. Like hunters following prey, Leary kept looking back nervously. "They do not want us to get help," she whispered. "They say marked families must solve their own problems." Even if someone dies, Evan clenched his jaw. He wanted to turn around and confront the guards. But that would only scare Leary more. He decided to stay calm for her sake. He let her lead him through narrow alleys and broken streets. The houses became smaller and older the farther they went. It was clear this area was forgotten by the government. Forgotten by everyone except those forced to live here. Finally, they reached a tiny metal house with a broken door. The inside was dark and silent. Leary pushed the door gently and walked in with careful steps. Evan followed behind her, his heart beating fast. He didn't know what he would find, but he knew he had to help inside the house. On a thin mat on the floor lay Leary's mother. Her skin was pale and dull. Her breathing was slow and shallow. Her eyes were closed. She looked like she was drifting away. Leary ran to her side. She touched her mother's hand gently. "Mom, I brought someone, a human." "He wants to help," she whispered. Evan kneeled beside the woman. He checked her pulse. It was weak, very weak. She needed medical attention immediately. He looked at Leary. She stared back with fear, hope, and exhaustion all mixed together. "Leary," he said softly, "we are not selling your toys today. We are saving your mother." And in that small, broken house, a new bond began, a human who refused to walk away, and a little alien girl holding on to her last hope. Evan stayed kneeling beside Leary's mother, his hand still on her wrist. Her pulse was faint, almost disappearing. Her breathing was slow, weak, and uneven. It was clear she was close to losing consciousness completely. Leary stood beside him, trembling, hugging her small cloth bag of toys tightly. Her eyes were filled with fear as she watched her mother struggle to breathe. "Is she going to be okay?" Leary whispered with a shaking voice. Evan looked up at her and forced himself to stay calm. "She needs help right now," he said softly. "She cannot survive like this much longer." Leary's small hands tightened around the bag. Her shoulders shook as she tried to stop herself from crying again. Evan looked around the room. The house was tiny, made of old metal sheets and broken tiles. There was no real furniture, only a few blankets, a small lantern, and a cracked window letting in weak sunlight. The air smelled of dust and sickness. It was clear no doctor had ever come here. "Why didn't the clinic send help?" Evan asked gently. Leary lowered her head. "They said we must pay first," she whispered. "They said marked families cannot receive care without credits." Her voice cracked. "I tried to ask neighbors, but—" Everyone was scared. Everyone closed their doors. Evan understood the terrible truth. This was not a case of poverty alone. This was a system designed to let families like Leary suffer. He stood up slowly, thinking hard. If he carried Leary's mother to the Human District Hospital, she might survive, but the guards were waiting outside. They were not there by accident. They were there to stop anyone from helping this family. He turned back to Leary. "We are going to move your mother," he said quietly. "We will take her to the Human Medical Center." Leary's eyes widened with fear. "No." "No. The guards will catch you. They will hurt you," she whispered. "They always watch us. They never let anyone help." Evan placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'm not leaving your mother here to die," he said firmly. "I don't care about their rules. Your mother deserves help." Leary stared at him with wide, shocked eyes. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. No one had ever stood beside her family. Evan leaned down and lifted Leary's mother carefully. She was so light it was frightening. She felt like a person who had been starving for weeks. Leary covered her mouth as tears fell silently down her cheeks. But if they arrest you?" she whispered. Evan shook his head. "They won't," he said with calm confidence he didn't fully feel. "They won't touch us once we reach the human sector." He carried the unconscious woman in his arms and nodded toward the back door. "Show me the safest way out," he said. Leary wiped her tears and moved quickly. She pushed open a small side door hidden behind a broken shelf. "This way," she whispered. "We can reach the alley through here." Evan followed her carefully. The alley behind the house was narrow and filled with old crates and trash bins, but it was hidden from the main street where the guards waited. They moved quietly, careful not to make noise. Leary kept looking back at her mother with terrified eyes. Evan adjusted his grip, trying not to jostle her. Just as they reached the end of the alley, they heard footsteps. Leary's heart stopped. Evan pressed himself against the wall, holding Leary's mother tight. Two guards walked by the entrance of the alley, speaking in a harsh tone. "Did the girl leave the marketplace?" one asked. "She's probably still begging," another replied. "We'll catch anyone who interferes, especially humans." They laughed as they walked away. Leary grabbed Evan's sleeve, shaking with fear. Evan waited a few seconds, then nodded. "This is our chance," he whispered. They moved quickly. Taking another narrow passage between buildings, the path twisted and turned like a maze. Leary knew every corner, every hidden gap. She had lived here all her life. She had walked these paths alone many times. But today was different. Today she was not alone, finally. They reached a wider street that led toward the border of the human district. The buildings changed from broken metal houses to cleaner stone structures. The air smelled fresher, the ground looked smoother. Leary's eyes widened in amazement. She had never walked this close to the human sector before. But then a loud shout echoed behind them. "Stop!" They turned and saw three guards running toward them. Evan's heart jumped. Leary gasped and grabbed his arm. The guards charged forward, pointing electric batons at them. "Return the marked woman immediately," one shouted. "Humans are forbidden from interfering." Evan stepped forward protectively. "I'm taking her to the human hospital," he said loudly. "This woman is dying." One guard growled, "She is marked. Her life is not your concern." Evan held her tighter. "She is someone's mother," he said, "and that makes her my concern." The guards sped up, ready to grab them. Leary screamed, "Run!" Evan ran forward with all his strength. Leary sprinted beside him, her small legs moving as fast as they could. The guards were close behind. Shouting threats, Evan's heart pounded. But ahead of them, he saw the shimmering force line that divided the human sector from the alien district. Once they crossed it, the guards would have no authority. Almost there. Evan shouted. He pushed himself harder. Leary ran with tears on her cheeks. The guards reached out to grab Evan's shoulder, but Evan crossed the line first. Leary followed, and the guards stopped instantly. Their hands frozen in midair, they could not take a single step into human territory. Evan breathed heavily. Leary grabbed his hand with both of hers. Crying in relief, they had made it. Her mother still had a chance. Evan stood just inside the human district, breathing hard as he held Leary's unconscious mother in his arms. Behind him, the alien guards glared with cold eyes, their hands still frozen at the invisible barrier line. They could not cross. They could not touch him here. But their anger was clear. Leary clung to Evan's sleeve, shaking, her small chest rising and falling quickly as she tried to catch her breath. One guard pointed at Evan from the other side. "You cannot protect her forever, human," the guard growled. "Marked families cannot be saved." Evan stepped back further, shielding Leary and her mother with his body. "I already did save her," he replied calmly. "And you can't stop me now," the guards cursed. But they couldn't move. They stood like angry statues. Helpless and furious, Evan didn't waste time. He turned toward the tall silver buildings of the human medical sector. "Come on, Leary," he said gently. "We must get your mother help right away." Leary nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hand as she followed him closely. As they entered the hospital, bright lights illuminated everything. The air smelled clean and warm. Human nurses rushed forward the moment they saw Evan carrying someone who could barely breathe. "What happened?" one nurse asked as she brought a hover stretcher toward them. "She collapsed," Evan explained, keeping his voice steady. "She has been sick for days and never received treatment." The nurses carefully placed Leary's mother onto the floating stretcher. Machines scanned her body. The screens flashed red warnings immediately. Her oxygen level was dangerously low. Her heartbeat was weak and irregular. Leary held onto Evan's hand, her small fingers shaking uncontrollably. "Is my mother going to die?" Leary whispered, her voice breaking. A doctor knelt down to her level and spoke gently. "We will do everything we can," the doctor said, "but she is very sick. She should have been brought here earlier." Leary lowered her head, tears falling silently. She tried to walk, but she couldn't. "And no one helped us." Evan squeezed her hand. "She's here now," he said softly. "And that is what matters." The doctors rushed her mother into the emergency room. The doors closed with a soft hiss. Leary stood frozen, staring at those doors as if her entire world was on the other side. Evan kneeled beside her. "You are safe now, Leary," he whispered. "You did everything you could." Leary shook her head slowly. "I didn't do enough," she said. "I tried to sell my toys, but no one cared. No one even looked at me." Evan felt a deep sadness listening to her. He could not understand how anyone had ignored this child, how anyone had watched her cry and done nothing. He placed both hands gently on her shoulders. "You were brave," he said. "You kept trying even when the world was cruel." Leary looked up at him with wide eyes full of pain. "You came," she whispered. "You were the only one who stopped." "The only one who listened." Evan smiled softly. "Sometimes one person is enough," he replied. Minutes passed, then more. Leary sat beside Evan in the waiting area, holding her cloth bag of toys to her chest. Every sound made her jump. Every nurse walking by made her look up hopefully. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She only waited. Outside the hospital windows, Evan could see shadows moving. The alien guards were still there, standing right at the borderline, watching the building like predators waiting to strike. Their silent presence felt like a threat, but they could do nothing inside human territory. Still, their persistence made Evan uneasy. What do they want? He wondered. Why are they so determined to keep this family from receiving help? Soon a doctor finally walked toward them. Both Evan and Leary stood up quickly. The doctor's face was serious but calm. We have stabilized her for now, the doctor said. But we discovered something important. Leary grabbed Evan's hand tightly. What? What is wrong with my mother? She asked. The doctor showed a small holographic screen. This, he said. Your mother was poisoned. Evan's eyes widened. Poisoned? He repeated. Yes, the doctor said. A slow-acting toxic chemical is in her system. This kind of poison is not natural. Someone put it there. Leary's face went pale. Her legs shook as if she might fall. My mother. She didn't eat anything strange. She whispered. She only breathed the air near our house. She only drank the water we always drank. The doctor nodded slowly. That is the problem, he said. The poison is common in industrial waste. It is usually found near factories or dumping areas. Evan's heart dropped. He remembered the damaged, polluted streets of Leary's neighborhood. He remembered the thick smell in the air. He remembered how the guards acted. He suddenly understood. Someone is dumping illegal waste near their home, Evan said quietly, and the government is covering it up. The doctor exchanged a glance with him. That is very possible, he said. Especially if the guards were involved. Leary started crying again. They made my mother sick. And then they denied her help. She whispered. They wanted her to die. Evan placed a hand on her head gently. Not anymore, he said. I promise you this. Leary. I will not let them hurt your family again. A new fire lit in Evan's eyes. He realized this was no longer just about saving one life. It was about exposing a corrupt system, about protecting a child who had been abandoned by her own world, and about standing against those who believed humans should not interfere. Leary looked up at him with trembling hope. What will we do now? She whispered. Evan stood tall. We fight for the truth, he said. And we start by finding proof. Evan stood in the quiet hallway of the human hospital, thinking about everything the doctor had revealed. Poison, illegal dumping, guards watching Leary like she was a criminal. It all connected into something dark, something dangerous. Leary sat on a chair nearby, hugging her toys with both arms, her eyes swollen from crying. She looked small, fragile, and exhausted, but she also looked like she was holding on to a tiny thread of hope. Evan knelt down next to her. Leary, he said softly, I need to ask you something very important. She looked at him quietly, waiting. Before your mother got sick, did you see anything unusual near your home? Evan asked. Leary blinked slowly, thinking. Then she nodded, but her voice trembled. Yes, I saw something, she whispered. Evan leaned closer. What did you see? He asked gently. Leary swallowed hard and hugged her doll tighter. One night, about 2 weeks ago, I woke up because I heard a loud smell, she said. Evan blinked, confused. A loud smell. Leary nodded quickly. Yes. It was very strong, like burning metal and rotten eggs. It made my eyes hurt. Evan understood she was describing chemical fumes. She continued with a shaking voice. I went outside, and I saw a big truck near our house. There were 2 aliens wearing masks. They opened metal barrels, and they poured something into the ground. Her lips trembled. The ground started smoking, and the smell got worse. It made me cough. Evan felt anger rising inside him like fire. The doctor was right. This was industrial waste, and these people were dumping it right where families lived. Did you tell anyone? Evan asked. Leary nodded again. I told my mother. She said she would report it, but the guards came the next morning. Her eyes lowered, filled with fear. They told us to stay quiet. They told us marked families should not cause trouble. Evan clenched his fists. So they threatened you, he said. Leary nodded slowly. They said if we talked, they would take our home. Evan stood up, a storm building inside him. This is not just corruption, he thought. This is cruelty. He took a deep breath and looked toward the hospital office. There was only one way to fight something like this. He needed witnesses. He needed evidence. He needed people who would listen. Leary, he said gently. We're going to report this to the Interspecies Council. Her eyes widened with fear. No, the guards will come. They will take us, she whispered. Evan shook his head firmly. They cannot reach you here, he said, and the council has authority over both humans and aliens. They can punish those responsible. Leary looked down at her toys, then up at him. She trusted him. He could see it in her eyes. Okay, she whispered. I will tell them what I saw. Evan contacted the council office and requested an emergency hearing. The officials hesitated at first, but when he explained that a child witnessed illegal dumping and that a life was nearly lost because of it, they agreed to hear the case. Bring the witness and any supporting evidence, the council agent said through the communicator. Evan thanked him and gathered everything the hospital had found. Chemical reports, medical scans, toxin readings. Each piece of paper carried weight. Each number was a strike against the corrupt system. Soon they reached the council building, a tall dome of glass and metal. Inside, the chamber was large, filled with representatives from different species. Some had tentacles, some had feathers, some had fur, and in the center was the main platform. A circular space where witnesses stood. Leary held Evan's hand as they walked in. She looked tiny in that huge room. Her steps were slow, careful, but she didn't let go of Evan. She needed his strength, and he gave it freely. A council member with silver eyes spoke. "You have requested a hearing about illegal toxic dumping," he said. "Present your witness." Evan guided Leary forward. She stood on the platform, shaking, but she did not run. The council waited in silence. "You may speak," they said. Leary's voice was soft at first. She told them about the truck, the masked workers, the burning smell, the smoking ground. She explained how her mother became sick after that night, how the guards forced them to stay silent, how no clinic would treat them without credits. Some council members gasped, others whispered angrily. One representative slammed his hand on the table. "This is a violation of 27 interspecies laws," he said. Evan then stepped forward with the hospital documents. "These results prove the poison is the same chemical used in industrial waste," he said. Her mother did not eat it. She did not touch it. She breathed it. From the ground near their home, more murmurs filled the chamber. The council leader raised a hand for silence. "Bring the accused guards here," he ordered. Moments later, the same guards who chased Evan appeared. They looked angry and nervous. One guard pointed at Evan. "This human interfered with our laws," he shouted. Evan stared back without fear. "You endangered a child and let a woman suffer," he said. "You broke laws." "Not me." The council examined the evidence. Every test, every reading, every word from Leary. Finally, the leader spoke. "The evidence is clear," he said. Illegal dumping was done near the child's home. Her mother was poisoned, and the guards enforced silence instead of protection. The guards were stunned. Their faces turned pale. They realized their power meant nothing here. The council announced their decision. "There will be a full investigation," they declared. "Those responsible will be punished. Medical rights will be given to the child and her mother immediately, and no marked family may be denied treatment again." Leary gasped softly. Tears filled her eyes, but for the first time, they were tears of relief. Evan placed a hand on her shoulder gently. "It's over," he whispered. "You're safe now." Leary walked out of the council chamber holding Evan's hand. Her small fingers were warm now, not cold with fear like before. For the first time in many days, her breathing was steady. Her steps were light, almost hopeful. The world that once ignored her was finally looking at her, not as a burden, not as a marked child, but as a brave little witness who changed everything. Evan walked beside her, proud and relieved. He knew the fight was not completely over, but the biggest battle had already been won. The truth had reached the council. The guards had been exposed. And Leary and her mother were no longer alone. When they returned to the hospital, Leary rushed inside. She ran straight to her mother's room, her heart beating fast, her small feet tapping loudly on the clean floor. Evan followed behind her, smiling softly at her excitement. Leary pushed open the door slowly. Her mother lay awake now, sitting up slightly with the help of pillows. Her eyes were open, weak but filled with light. The moment she saw Leary, tears filled her eyes. "Leary," she whispered gently. Her voice was soft. Fragile but alive, Leary dropped her toys and ran to her mother. She hugged her carefully, afraid to hurt her but unable to stop herself. Her mother stroked her hair with trembling fingers. "I'm here. I'm still here," she whispered. Leary cried into her chest. Gripping her tightly, Evan stood at the door. Watching the scene quietly, he felt something warm spread through his chest. This moment alone made everything he did worth it. The running, the danger, the anger, the fight. All of it led to this. A child reunited with her mother. The doctor entered the room with a smile. "She will make a full recovery," he said. We removed the toxins and gave her the treatment she needed. She just needs rest now. Leary looked up with bright, joyful eyes. Thank you. Thank you. She kept repeating, but the doctor shook his head. Thank him, he said, pointing to Evan. He fought harder than anyone. Leary turned toward Evan slowly. Her eyes were full of gratitude. She walked to him and took his hand gently. You saved my mother, she whispered. No one ever helped us before. Not even our own people. Evan kneeled to her level. I helped because it was the right thing to do, he said softly, and because you were brave. You didn't give up. The next day, the Interspecies Council announced new emergency laws. No child, no matter their class or species, could be denied medical care again. No family could be ignored or forced to stay silent. Illegal dumping areas would be searched, factories would be inspected, and every guard connected to corruption was suspended and arrested. News spread across the planet quickly. People were shocked, then angry. Many families from the lower district came forward with their own stories. Stories of sickness, threats, and fear. It was clear Leary's family was not alone. But because of her, things would change now. A week later, Leary's mother was healthy enough to leave the hospital. Evan walked with them through the streets of the human district. The sunlight felt warm, the air fresh and bright. Leary held her mother's hand with one hand, and with the other. She carried a new stuffed toy, a gift from Evan. When they reached the border of the district, dozens of aliens from their neighborhood stood waiting, but this time no guards blocked the way. No angry eyes followed them. People stepped aside, letting them pass with respect. Some even bowed their heads slightly. Whispers floated through the crowd. That is the little girl who spoke to the council. That is the child who changed the law. Leary hid behind Evan shyly, but her mother placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You should be proud, she whispered. You saved me. And so many others. They reached their small home, the same place filled with danger just days before. But now, cleanup crews and investigators were working in the area. Machines scanned the ground for toxins. Workers in suits removed barrels and sealed off contaminated soil. Evan watched them, satisfied. This place would no longer hurt people like Leary. Inside the house, the air already felt different. Safer, lighter. Leary set her toys on the floor, arranging them neatly in a line. Her mother sat beside her, smiling weakly but warmly. Evan stood at the door, ready to leave, but Leary ran to him suddenly. She held her favorite wooden block in her small hands. Take this, she whispered. It is my best toy. I want you to have it. Evan shook his head gently. No, Leary, he said softly. That toy is special to you. I can't take it. Leary looked up with watery eyes. It's special because you saved us, she whispered. It will remind you of me. Evan felt something deep in his chest. He slowly took the toy from her hands. I will keep it forever, he promised. Leary hugged him tightly. He hugged her back gently. Careful not to hurt her. As he stepped outside, Leary called out to him. Will you visit us again? She asked hopefully. Evan smiled warmly. Always, he said. You're part of my story now. And as he walked away under the bright sun, he knew this wasn't the end. This was the beginning of something greater, a connection, a friendship, a promise that humans could bring hope even where hope was lost. Leary watched him go with a smile full of new strength, a smile that showed the world she was no longer afraid. She was not a marked child anymore. She was the little girl who changed everything,